And hello, sports fans, and welcome to today's roundtable. And as we've mentioned over the past few weeks, we are deep into spring sports season, and it's a quick sports season for the spring, as graduation is going to be coming up in just about 3 weeks for all the schools in the area. So it's a very busy sports season for the spring. Pretty congested games throughout the week, but we're sure to bring the results to you each Saturday right here on the Sports Roundtable, and quite a few scores to get to from the area. Also, a big tournament taking place down in Malden that's going to wrap up today. Big baseball tournament down there. That's always a big tournament each spring in high school baseball. And we've got some local news to report on, especially from Southeast Missouri State University, as they chose 2 new basketball coaches for their college basketball program this past week, and we'll touch on that a little later, and also some baseball state rankings to touch on as well. And we'll give you a Cardinals update here momentarily, as the season's well underway, already midway through the first month of the season. So we'll give you a Cardinals update here momentarily, and also in the NBA playoffs have gotten underway and going to be very busy this weekend with many games across the league getting underway with the first round of the NBA playoffs. So a lot going on. Season starting to wrap up for high school athletics. As I said, graduation's about 3 weeks away, and we'll be soon getting into district play, which doesn't take long. It'll be probably in another week or two, or actually about two more weeks. We'll be entering into district play, and we'll see what happens with the spring sports in the area. Very competitive teams, as it's come to be pretty routine here in Southeast Missouri, and especially in high school baseball, but very, very competitive softball teams in the area as well. Certainly looking back to last year, Kennett coming away with the state championship, the first state championship for spring softball. So very competitive across the region in spring sports athletics here in Southeast Missouri. And let's go ahead and get started with some high school baseball that took place yesterday. As I mentioned, down in the Malden round robin, here in the round robin games, Portageville defeated Bernie 6-2. Portageville advances on to the championship round of that Malden baseball tournament. And in other games, Malden over New Madrid County Central in a shutout, 7-0. And Malden will move on to the championship round as well. Cooter over Scott City in a close one, 6-5. Cooter also advances in that championship round. And those games are going to be taking place throughout today there in Malden to come up with the winner of that Malden baseball spring tournament. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens there later on this afternoon. And in other games, in the Stoddard County, Bloomfield over Advance 3-1. And also Donovan over Twin Rivers 13-0. Cooter over Southland in a shutout, 12-0. And that was a game from a few days ago. I think that was a Thursday game there. Bell City over Kelly 2-1 in a close one. Oran over Chaffee 13-0. Big victory for Oran a couple days ago. Bell City over Perryville 6-1. Cooter over Donovan 7-4. Dexter over New Madrid County Central 8-4. Bernie over Bloomfield 12-0, and a big win for the Bernie Mules a couple days ago. Campbell over East Prairie 9-4. Bell City over Puxico a few days ago 10-0, and a shutout victory over Puxico there in the Stoddard County Conference. Zenith Hornersville over Caruthersville 8-2. And also we have Neelyville over East Carter County out west 8-4. Greenville over Donovan 18-0. And Greenville's really shown themselves to be one of the top teams in the area. They've had decisive victories across the board this spring, and a very competitive team. So the Greenville Bears, certainly a team to look out for here in a few weeks come district tournament time. And those are your scores from the last few days in high school baseball. And as I mentioned, that tournament there in Malden going to be wrapping up this afternoon, actually probably later on this evening. there in Malden. Big tournament down there, round robin play, entering to the championship round for today. So we'll look forward to seeing what happens there in Malden later on today. And also taking a look at, actually let's take a quick break and we're going to be back with more coming up.
Deposit your check here or here or even there. Deposit your check wherever you are with First Midwest Bank's new mobile deposit. Just tap, snap, deposit. It's that simple. New mobile deposit from First Midwest Bank, serving the communities we call home.
Always on the go? Take the best in TV entertainment with you with New Wave to Go. Now you can enjoy your home television service everywhere, anytime on your laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Watch your favorite channels and sporting events live via the internet. Even access your home DVR to enjoy your recorded shows and movies or to set up future recordings. Prices start at just $12.99 a month. So call us today and ask about New Wave to Go. Another innovative service brought to you by New Wave, your local communications experts.
And now we'll take a look at some baseball state rankings for the state of Missouri, and starting out with Class 1 baseball state rankings from the Missouri Baseball Coaches Association. And they're on top at number 1, Atlanta, 2, New Franklin, 3, Billings, 4, Walnut Grove, 5, Dadeville, 6, Oran, 7, Lakeland, 8, Hurley, 9, Santa Fe, 10, Wellington, Napoleon, rounding out the top 10 for Class 1. And seeing Oran there at number 6 from Southeast Missouri. And in Class 2, Valley Catholic out of St. Genevieve there on top at number 1. And right behind them out west is East Carter County. 3, Lynn. And 4, as we mentioned before, the Greenville Bears there at number 4. And number 5, Bernie, the Bernie Mules at number 5. 6, Sturgeon. 7, the Chaffee Red Devils. 8, Norwood, 9, Crane, and 10, Plato. And quite a few teams there from Southeast Missouri with Valley Catholic, East Carter, Greenville, and Bernie, also Chaffee. So 5 teams making up the top 10 in high school baseball for Class 2 state rankings. And in Class 3, Forsyth at number 1, 2, Fatima, 3, Holden, 4, Mountain Grove, 5, Lutheran St. Charles, 6, Stockton, 7, Conway, 8, Lamar, 9, Palmyra, and 10, New Madrid County Central. New Madrid County Central there at number 10. They've had 5 straight losses, so they're probably going to be out of that top 10 when the new poll comes out next week. And in Class 4 baseball, Westminster Christian at number 1. 2, Notre Dame of Cape Girardeau, they're at number 2. 3, Monette. 4, Mexico. 5, Logan Rogersville. 6, Elias Catholic. 7, Boonville. 8, Lutheran South, 9, Savannah, and 10, Southern Boone. And there's the Class 4 state rankings with Notre Dame right there at number 2. Class 5, Rockbridge at number 1, 2, Staley, 3, Francis Howell, 4, Raymore Peculiar, 5, Blue Springs South, 6, Rockhurst, 7, Holt, 8, Christian Brothers College, CBC, 9, Oakville, and 10, Vianney. So no Southeast Missouri teams there in Class 5. Don't have very many teams in Class 5 from the area. So new poll's going to be coming out next week. We're probably going to be seeing some changes there in those rankings in the top 10. So we'll look forward to seeing how those changes take place by next week. Very competitive baseball season this year. Notre Dame, which had the privilege of going up and playing in Busch Stadium just a few days ago. I believe they played, it may have been Sykeston in that contest to play in Busch Stadium. They played after one of the afternoon games there at Busch Stadium, and what a privilege it is to play in Busch Stadium, especially at the high school level. And we're seeing more of that. Of course, we've been reporting on games being played at Memphis in the FedEx Forum down in Memphis. Some Boot Hill teams travel down to Memphis to play in the home of the Memphis Grizzlies down in the FedEx Forum. Looks like the Cardinals are kind of doing the same concept up there at St. Louis. after a game, not before as they do in Memphis, but after a noon game. They had that Notre Dame game a couple days ago, so really neat that the high school players get to play in Busch Stadium. It's just really unheard of. I don't think they've done it before, unless they've done it for some St. Louis teams up there. That's the first time any Southeast Missouri team has had that opportunity to play in Busch Stadium in St. Louis. So certainly a time to remember there to play in Busch Stadium. And Notre Dame's got a really good team this year. They've done really well, played well. That's one of the more consistent programs in the areas. Notre Dame up there in Cape Girardeau, and then Cooter down the way, and the Deep Boot Hill has pretty much been the consistent team among the small schools. But Notre Dame, very consistent, got state championships there at Cape Notre Dame, and a very competitive team there with Notre Dame in Cape Girardeau. So some very competitive baseball. You see that Class 2, 5 teams from Southeast Missouri making up the top 10 in the state rankings. There with Bernie, Chaffee, Valley Catholic, East Carter County, and Greenville. Greenville having a very successful year so far. So it's going to be fun to watch to see what plays out in that Class 2. And that Class 2, it seems like whether it's baseball and basketball, it's just so competitive here in Southeast Missouri. You kind of see the same teams there. Bernie's been a consistent program with baseball and basketball over the years, and Portageville, they're right there in the mix. I believe Portageville's in Class 2 in baseball, so they got a win over Bernie yesterday in that Malden baseball tournament, so they're going to be right there in the mix. They've had very good baseball teams here the past few years there in Portageville. The softball as well. Softball team in the fall played in the semifinals this year. Controversial loss, of course, but very competitive teams there in Portageville as well. So that Class 2 is just stacked, especially in basketball and baseball. And we got to see Hawkham a few years ago make it out of Class 2, make it to the Final Four a few years back, and looks like it's going to be very competitive once again to come out of Class 2 in district play, even in in District 1 and 2 here in Southeast Missouri. Very competitive in Class 2 baseball once again this year. And New Madrid County Central made it to 2 straight Final Fours, and I believe they came away with 3rd place last year. Either that was 2 years ago or last year, but nonetheless, made it to 2 straight Final Fours, and have a little difficulty early on this season, taking some losses. Had 5 straight losses after Dexter beat them. I believe it was a couple days ago. So, New Madrid County Central have a little bit more tough of a season this year, but they've been one of the better programs here in the past couple years there in New Madrid. So, very competitive baseball this year, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way here in Southeast Missouri. And we're going to take a break and talk about the 2 coaches that Southeast Missouri State has hired for their basketball programs, both men's and women's, coming up.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Welcome to NFL Total Access,
the show that takes you inside the locker room and down on the field. With inside access to all 32 teams all year long. NFL Total Access, Monday through Saturday, only on NFL Network.
NFL Network, where football season never ends.
And welcome back, and now we're going to talk about Southeast Missouri State University. They hired 2 basketball coaches this past week for their men's and women's programs. Former coaches Dickie Nutt for the men's and Ty Morgenthaler for the women's. Morgenthaler resigned and Dickie Nutt was effectively fired from the men's basketball position. So 2 new hires for the Southeast Missouri State basketball programs. And first starting with the men's, Athletic Director Mark Nutt announced earlier this week that they hired Ricky Ray as their new men's basketball coach. And Ricky Ray spent the past handful of seasons at Mississippi State in the Southeastern Conference, the SEC. And Mississippi State hasn't had the best of seasons here in the past handful of years, and he was terminated from his position out on the open market, and Southeast Missouri scoops up Ricky Ray for their next men's basketball coach. So certainly Ricky Ray's coached at a very high level in the SEC conference, even though it's certainly he wouldn't be at the SEMO level if he had better success at Mississippi State, but nonetheless coached at a very high level, high program, even though Mississippi State's not considered one of the best teams in the conference there in the SEC, or have been known to be one of the best teams, but coached at a big-time conference in the SEC, seen a lot of talent across the nation, so hopefully being at that high of a level in the SEC conference, coming down to Southeast Missouri State, can take the Redhawks to the next level in their basketball program. Dickie Nutt was at Southeast for 6 years, certainly took over a program that was in disarray after the violations, the sanctions that came down on the men's basketball program. So it was a tough place to start, and made moderate progress. They didn't go deep into the OVC tournament play, but did make some progress. So Dickie Nutt doesn't exactly leave the program in shambles. It was just basically got to a point where the program has progressed, but it's just gotten to a point that I guess the administration and the athletic department just thinks that someone different can come in and take it to the next level. So Dickie Nutt certainly didn't do a bad job. He was dealt a rough hand to begin with, and he knew that coming in. And Dickie Nutt, a positive guy, positive personality, helped get SEMO out of the basement in a sense, and got it to a point to where it's kind of a mediocre program here in the past couple years, but certainly out of sanctions, out of when it comes to recruiting, those sanctions really hamper you being able to go after the best talent that you can, especially at the mid-major level. It's not top-tier talent you're going after. You're kind of going after talent that's kind of been overlooked, and it's tough when you've got lesser scholarships than other programs to compete for those best basketball players at the mid-major level. So Ricky Ray coming on board as the next men's basketball coach at Southeast Missouri State University. So we'll see what plays out going forward with the men's basketball program. And going to be a little adjustment there for Ricky Ray as well. Certainly going from a power conference as the SEC and Mississippi State and going down to the mid-major level, totally different basketball levels, as you can imagine. Some coaches don't make that transition well. It's just hard for them to make that transition for whatever reason. As I said, you're dealing with a totally different talent pool, and you certainly need very good assistants to be able to seek out that talent at the mid-major level. Back in Southeast Missouri State, when they had their better years there, like in 2000 when they made the tournament, the assistants, notably Anthony Bean, played a big role in seeking out that mid-major talent across this region. He was one of the better recruiters at the mid-major level, especially in the OVC conference at that time. And he's moved on. I think he's at Illinois State or SIU. I think he's at SIU now at this point. He's kind of went around a couple states. Went to Illinois State at one time, and now I think at SIU. And starting to get SIU out of the basement as well. They hit the basement a few years ago. So really your assistants really play a big role in seeking out that talent and recruiting that best mid-major level talent at the mid-major level, such as Southeast Missouri State University. So hopefully he makes that transition well. It's a tough transition for some coaches. You're just dealing with a totally different talent pool, and just being able to assess the talent and go after the right talent. And sometimes you go after talent that's probably above the mid-major level, you miss out on that talent and kind of overlook some talent that you could have been going for all along. It's certainly tough when you're coming down from the power conference level at the mid-major level. Some coaches struggle to make that transition. And Brady's one of the coaches there at Arkansas State, coached at LSU, and before he came to Arkansas State, and he's done fairly well there in the Sun Belt Conference. He's made that transition pretty well, and they've had some competitive teams there at Arkansas State over the years. So it's it's a gamble you take when you go after some of that power conference. I know it sometimes seems as the easy hire because they played at such a high, or they coached at such a high level program in the SEC conference, one of the power conferences. I know it's kind of the easy hire to just hire the best candidate with the best resume, and it's an easy hire if you can get a candidate like that. But at the mid-major level, it's a little different, but hopefully he makes that transition very well to help out the men's basketball program at Southeast Missouri State. And moving on to the women's. Hired a women's coach as well after Ricky Ray this week, and Mark Allen announced that Rekha Patterson is the new women's basketball coach at Southeast Missouri State, and she spent much of her career as an assistant, and notably late as the Baylor assistant, one of the Baylor assistant coaches. Baylor, one of the premier basketball programs for the women's. As you can certainly remember, a couple years ago, Brittany Griner was a big star in women's basketball for Baylor, and they won a national championship that lost in her senior year with Brittany Griner there. But a very competitive team there at Baylor, very competitive program, and Rekha Patterson comes from the assistant coaching staff at Baylor, so certainly a nice hire there. Coming from a big-time program like Baylor, and certainly being around a winning culture there at Baylor, a high profile. I mean, we're talking about power conference, of course, but Baylor is one of the top probably 5 programs in the country in women's basketball. And can't really pinpoint what they did this year, but over the last handful of years, certainly if you're competing for a national championship and at the women's level, you're certainly one of the top programs. And she comes from their assistant staff, and she comes to a SEMO women's basketball program having trouble of their own now. It looks like they might they're under investigation after some improper communication between the previous coaching staff and recruits. So there might be some sanctions coming to the women's basketball program. We'll see. That's still ongoing. So certainly not the best of situations to walk into, but certainly a great hire for Southeast Missouri State, going after an assistant coach at a high level such as Baylor. So she's going to bring that credibility to the women's basketball program when it comes to recruiting. That's going to be kind of a recruiting tool to be able to go to those recruits, say, coached at Baylor, some of the best talent, and it's certainly a great grab for the Southeast Missouri women's basketball program. Rekha Patterson going to be the next women's basketball coach at Southeast Missouri State University. So pretty busy spring for Southeast Missouri State and their athletic department, having to hire 2 basketball coaches. I know that's tough. Mark Allnut, been with Southeast, a new Southeast AD, athletic director there at SEMO. He's had a very busy spring going after 2 coaches. One's tough enough, but 2 basketball coaches, and got them hired within a week. Very busy Final Four week for Mark Allnut, as that's where he met up with Ricky Ray, and then potentially Rekha Patterson as trying to find the new men's and women's basketball coaches. So pretty busy week for SEMO, especially in the news. So hopefully these hires will work out in the future for the men's and women's basketball programs at Southeast. And we're going to take another break and give you a Cardinals update and also an NBA playoffs update, or a preview, not an update, but a preview for this weekend. Don't go away.
NFL Red Zone, the channel that brings you every touchdown from every game on Sunday afternoons. Watch the most exciting moments like never before, live in HD. Every touchdown from every game, live on one channel, NFL Red Zone.
The competitive edge. It's the edge that sets you apart from your competition. Every business needs it. Now every business can get it. Partner with Advanced Business Solutions and give your business the competitive edge. Advanced Business Solutions, delivered by New Wave, offers scalable fiber optic-based internet solutions to fit your needs. Now you can download without the wait on a network designed for you. Call Advanced Business Solutions and get the competitive edge for as low as $39.99 per month.
Excuse me. And now we're going to take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals. Give you a Cardinals update. And after Friday's game, they're 6-3 on the year and complete first place lead for the St. Louis Cardinals in the Central Division, one game ahead of the Chicago Cubs, and got that victory over Cincinnati in the first of that three-game series with the Cincinnati Reds, and got two more games Saturday and Sunday, 1:15 start for Saturday and a 7:05 start Sunday night. It's a Sunday night ESPN game Sunday night between the Cardinals and the Reds for that in that Central Division. So you can catch that game Sunday night on ESPN, of course. All the games on Fox Sports Midwest as well. So St. Louis on a three-game winning streak. Winning 2 of 3 of Milwaukee, winning the last game of that three-game series with Milwaukee, now 2 games in a row, winning the last 2 games of the three-game series with Milwaukee, and now winning the first with Cincinnati. Got another home game, or 2 more home games this weekend, and they'll take Monday off and enter into a road series with the Washington Nationals, so we'll be looking forward to that next week. So Cardinals off to a pretty good start. They stumbled out a little bit as they lost two of their first 3 games there, and not a bad start since. Going 6-3 on the year entering this weekend. And the NBA playoffs set for this weekend. Games start today. This is Saturday. Starts this afternoon. The games to look forward to actually at 11:30 on not sure what channel that is, but either way, it's the Wizards taking on the Raptors. That's the 4-5 game. The Raptors, the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference, taking on the Wizards, the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. And as I mentioned earlier in the week, quite a storyline with this series. Not on the national level, of course, but here locally, we've got 2 Southeast Missouri basketball natives that are going to be playing in that one series. You got Tyler Hansbrough, that's playing for the Toronto Raptors now, and formerly of Poplar Bluff, and Otto Porter, formerly of Scott County Central, playing for the Washington Wizards. So probably very few times you're going to come across 2 Southeast Missouri basketball players playing in the NBA, but not only that, playing in a playoff series against one another, as we do have Tyler Hansbrough and Otto Porter doing with the Wizards and Raptors series. A great story for Southeast Missouri. Probably 2 of the better players we'll ever see in Southeast Missouri at the high school basketball level, with Tyler Hansbrough and Otto Porter. Played big-time college basketball. Tyler Hansbrough, the all-time leading scorer at North Carolina. And Otto Porter played 3 years there at, I believe it was 3 years there at Georgetown. Had a great career there. Even was fortunate enough to leave early, be a high draft lottery pick in the NBA draft. So it's just great to see those 2 guys excel in their careers and now playing in the playoffs against one another. So it's going to be fun to watch, especially if they're going to be on the court at the same time. And I know you might even see the announcers and mention that Otto Porter and Tyler Hansbrough just probably an hour or so away from each other from Southeast Missouri. I don't know. It's a little under the radar, I would say, for the national scene, but it would be certainly a nice tidbit to touch on during those broadcasts. But, they don't come any better talent-wise than Tyler Hansbrough and Otto Porter, especially here from Southeast Missouri. It's just unbelievable what they've been able to do in their basketball careers. and going to have long careers. It looks like Tyler Hansbrough's been in the pros for what, about 5-6 years now, and that's a career right there now. I mean, he is a role player, kind of a utility player, very physical, and he's pretty much not liked, to say the least, around the league. He really gets physical with these players, especially the players that kind of finesse players that play in the post and do a lot of scoring, and he pushes on them, just makes it difficult for them. And a lot of times they get enough of it by, halfway through the game, and they're wanting to pick a fight with Hansbrough at that point. But it's kind of strange that he kind of got that reputation. I know playing at the high school level, I was fortunate to play against him one year. He was a pretty clean player. He's not a dirty player. He's just physical. He's I wouldn't say he's rough either. He's just physical. It makes it difficult for the opposition. Not a dirty player by any means. And some of the national media has kind of picked up on his reputation as being kind of a rough player that's always getting in scuffles. You can watch highlights, and there will be, you can always depend on a handful of times that Hansbrough's getting in a scuffle of some sort, and he'll put it out on SportsCenter or whatever. It seems like you pick out a handful of instances, and even polls across the league, players that vote on who's the dirtiest player or who's the player you want to punch or anything like that. Tyler Hansbrough, here in the last few years, has been at the top of that list. And, it's kind of surprising to me, just because I know somewhat of Tyler Hansbrough and watched him through college. He's never been a dirty player. He's just always been in kind of in people's heads a little bit. I wouldn't even say that. He's not really even a trash talker even. He's just always pushing, always nudging, always getting an extra shot in, after a shot or a rebound, and just a lot more physical than the other players. And, that's his role on a team, to really play well defensively, physically, and just disrupt the other team's post players, and that's certainly what he does. So he's carved out a little niche in the NBA of his own, and he's got a reputation that many are starting to pick up on and starting to follow. So, and he'll have a 9-10 year career. I'm pretty confident, and that's amazing at the NBA level. It's I can't name what the average lifespan in the NBA is, but I'm sure it's probably less than a handful of years, I'm sure. But to have already a 5-6 year career and pretty much carved out a niche for him, being that physical defensive utility player, he's gonna be able to play in this league for a while. There's always teams needing that player to either come off the bench or start to defend the best post player or the best rebounder on the other team to compete for those rebounds. So Tyler Hansbrough certainly made a name for himself so far in the NBA. And on the other side, Otto Porter got a little slow start to his NBA career. Has had some injuries, as Hansbrough has. He's had issues with the concussions there and being able to recover. But Otto Porter having some injury issues, which you're playing at that big time of level, with being that young, you're going to be running into some injuries at some point. And he's starting to recover, starting to develop. Otto Porter, a more slight frame, a more thinner frame, and he's certainly going to have to develop his physicality and just his maturity to certainly not emotionally, but certainly mature physically to play at a high level in the NBA. And he's slowly coming along, he's slowly developing, and certainly a lot of potential with Otto Porter in the NBA. So, his better days are ahead of him. He's certainly not peaked yet, that's for sure. So we'll be certainly looking forward to his NBA career going forward, and a lot of potential in him as well going forward. So great story with that series and the NBA playoffs getting underway today. And in other games, the Pelicans, the 8th seed in the Western Conference, headed up by Anthony Davis, going to take on Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors, the top seed in the Western Conference, finished the year 67-15. That is amazing finish for the Golden State Warriors. Had a competitive team last year, but far and away the best team in the league this year, right up there with the Hawks. But the Warriors want to have home court advantage throughout, and got a very, very talented team across all the metrics, the advanced metrics, analytics. They're off the charts in their efficiency, but they are more of a perimeter team, jump shooting team that doesn't really fare well in the NBA playoffs. Usually it's that slow down game, pound it inside, penetrate, get to the basket, get to the free throw line and convert. Those are the teams that really do well in the playoffs. But a jump shooting team, perimeter-based team, typically doesn't fare that well in the NBA playoffs. And the Warriors going to be the team to test that theory this year, as they got some of the best guards in Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry in the backcourt. Not a whole lot of size underneath. Draymond Green's kind of their utility player at the kind of the power forward position. And Andrew Bogut, more of a kind of a finesse player down low. He's not really a big-time post presence down low for the Golden State Warriors. So we'll see how they do and test out that theory. But Stephen Curry likely going to be the MVP this year. He's had an amazing season. And one thing's, he's made so many highlights this year, 40 and 50-point games, and a couple of highlights against Chris Paul, of all people, one of the best guards in the league, arguably the best point guard in the league. Just broke Chris Paul down a few instances and, made some spectacular plays. And I think that's what's so great about Stephen Curry. He's not. We haven't really seen a talent like him. I mean, you can argue that we've seen shooters like him, we've seen ball handling skills like his, but man, he just plays the game a little bit differently than everyone else. He's not just overwhelmingly athletic, but he's just so crafty and just maneuvers so well with the basketball, and his head fakes and his hesitations, his quick release. The only player I can really look back to kind of compare him to is a young Ray Allen. He kind of reminds me of Ray Allen, especially his ability to shoot the ball, but Ray Allen didn't have the ball handling skills that he has, being able to maneuver, and his hesitations and fakes are just unbelievable, and he gets open and just needs just a little bit of space to have that quick release. And some of the best guard play you'll ever see is what Stephen Curry is offering the league right now. He's kind of a cross between an Allen Iverson and Ray Allen. He's kind of got the the hesitation, the ball handling, the ability to create space, which he stands much taller. He's like 6'3", where Allen Iverson was 6 foot, so a difference in height there. But some of the best basketball you'll see at the guard position is what Stephen Curry's doing, and I just really haven't seen anyone like him. It's been fun to watch. You got to stay up late to watch their games, that's for sure. On the West Coast, you got to stay up till about 10:30 just to get the start of it. So, or about 9:30, 10 o'clock just to watch the start of the game. So, get to see more of them in the NBA playoffs. Certainly this year, being able to play some day games. Well, they play this afternoon at 2:30, taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. And over in the Eastern Conference at 6 o'clock this evening on ESPN, it's the 6th-seeded Milwaukee Bucks taking on the 3rd-seeded Chicago Bulls. And a nice series there. The Bucks, a 6th seed, making quite a season for themselves. Jabari Parker got injured this year, their star draft pick. He got injured, but they fared well, coming away with 6th seed. The 6th seed in the Eastern Conference isn't certainly on par with 6th seed in the Western Conference, but finished the year 41-41, not too bad. With losing their best player in Jabari Parker, and Jason Kidd's done a pretty good job there. They got some young talent there coming up, and put together a nice season. And the Bulls a 3 seed this year, and they got Derrick Rose back, so certainly going to make a run in the playoffs this year. And at 8:30 this evening on ESPN's the Mavericks, going to be the 7th seed, and get this, a 7th seed, 50-32 on the year as a 7th seed. Just shows you how competitive the Western Conference has been this year. The Pelicans, who the 8th seed, they're 45-37, not a bad year. And being an 8th seed at 45-37, certainly got a very competitive Western Conference. And the Rockets, the 2nd seed, taking on the Mavericks, and a 56-26 record. Very good year for the Rockets there with the 2nd seed. And a battle of Texas there with Houston and Dallas. And James Harden, very good year. He's right up there in the MVP race as well. Might be edged out by Stephen Curry just for the fact that the Warriors have just had a tremendous season, and Harden, some of the best basketball you'll see from anyone in the league this year. Certainly a big-time talent with James Harden. Sunday's games, afternoon, 2 p.m. on ABC. The Boston Celtics, the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, taking on the 2nd seed, Cleveland Cavaliers. And the Celtics kind of rising from the ashes a bit. They've been in the basement the past few seasons. And if you remember, Brad Stevens, former coach of the Butler Bulldogs, went to 2 straight Final Fours, and I believe it was 2009 and 2010, losing the national championship games. He went on to the Celtics for the last few years and has done a great job. I mean, this Celtics team really doesn't have any top-tier talent, even though they went 40-42. Right at 500 ball for the Celtics is a big deal. But taking on the very talented Cleveland Cavaliers, and talk about rising from the ashes, Cleveland Cavaliers have been in the deep basement since LeBron James left after the 2010 season, going to Miami, playing in 4 straight finals since he left. Comes back to Cleveland, comes back and gets the 2nd seed, 53 wins on the year. Very, very competitive team there with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and other additions they made, J.R. Smith and others. Got a competitive team there in Cleveland. They're certainly going to make a run. And ironically, they're playing the Cavs are playing the Celtics, the last team that LeBron faced in the playoffs back in 2010. Lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals as the Boston Celtics advanced not only the Eastern Conference championship but the NBA Finals, eventually losing to the LA Lakers. And also Sunday afternoon, 4:30 on TNT, the 8th seed Brooklyn Nets take on the top seed Atlanta Hawks. The top seed in the Eastern Conference, and that'll be at 4:30 on TNT on Sunday. The Hawks finish with a record of 60-22. Impressive season for the Atlanta Hawks. This is one team that is not very typical of a top NBA team. They don't really have a star player. They've got some good talent on that team, but they just play so well as a team. There's no real guy to key on, but a very well-rounded team there with Atlanta. We'll see if they can make the finals. I think they're going to have a good chance at making the Eastern Conference Finals, potentially meeting up with the Cleveland Cavaliers or even the Chicago Bulls. That'll be a nice Eastern Conference semifinal matchup that comes up, and the Hawks got a chance to make some waves. They've had a competitive team over the past few years, but really took the next step this year in being the top team in the Eastern Conference. And in the Western Conference, Sunday at 7 p.m., it's going to be the Trailblazers taking on the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies, the 4 seed. Trailblazers, the 5 seed there in the Western Conference. And 9:30 TNT Sunday night, the Spurs and the Clippers, which is probably going to be the best series of the first round. The Clippers are 56. Get this, the Clippers are the 3rd seed, 56-26. And the Spurs are the 6th seed, the defending world champions, at 55-27. So only one game separating the two teams. But the Clippers a 3 seed, and the Spurs a 6 seed. That's just how competitive those teams have been and how it came down to the wire, all the seedings there in the Western Conference. So a very competitive series there between the Spurs and the Clippers. And the Spurs looking to repeat. And, they're probably a few seconds away from potentially going for a three-peat. A couple years ago, there in 2012, they lost a heartbreaker Game 6 to the Miami Heat and lost a potential Game 7 there in 2012 to the Heat. Come back last year, dominated the Heat, beat the Heat in by a record margin in the NBA Finals, trying to come back and repeat this year. So they're not that far off, a few possessions away from competing for a 3rd straight World Championship this season. But that's one thing about the Spurs they haven't done. They haven't repeated as champions. They've stayed very consistent, but it seems like when some of the better teams lose some of their better players and come down as a talent, they tend to be right there and pick up that World Championship when some of the better teams of the last handful of years have kind of come down. But we'll see if the Spurs can repeat. Something they haven't been done, and they've been called a dynasty, but I'm not sure you can refer to them as a dynasty since they haven't repeated one time. So I think they've just been exceptionally exceptionally consistent. So I think a world championship this year, a repeat championship, would certainly make a stamp for them being a dynasty here in the last decade or so in the NBA. But we'll see what happens this year. And that's pretty much all we got to report on for today. And we appreciate you for tuning in as always. Look forward to seeing you right back here with us next week on another roundtable. And until then, I'm Tyler Wagner. Have yourself a nice week. Take care, everyone.